Gotta remember to mute it. Hello, we are live with the season finale of Just Whelmed, and look, I actually got Joe in before I started this time. I'm like, because last week I'm just like, why haven't I done this?
Woo!
All right. So, we're covering the last 4 episodes of season 1 of Young Justice, and I know you let it slip last week that you had already watched it, but what did you think of these last 4 episodes, just as a whole?
Well, just to prepare for the episode, we rewatched them. Ashley didn't remember anything that happened because I'm pretty sure she was dozing in and out of consciousness the first time we watched them, because it happens sometimes when we're watching a TV show for a long time. But I enjoyed them. There is one episode I don't care for because it feels like filler at the end of the season, and I hate when we're reaching the end of the season and then suddenly filler. And I understand it probably serves a purpose, but that doesn't make me feel any better about it.
I mean, it's like I like the episode. I agree that it is, filler.
I'm pretty sure we
But
know exactly which episode we're both talking about.
oh yeah, I know. We'll get to it. And like I feel like it has its place.
Oh, it does totally.
Yeah,
But I
yeah. But that's fair. But let me actually pull up the episode lists again because I know the episode names. I just don't want to get them wrong.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I just don't have his bookmark now. This is like the 7th week in a row I pulled up the Wikipedia list on air.
Hey, this is free entertainment for those that, whatever, haven't watched it.
Yeah. All right, so of course we got to start off with the Artemis might be the mole episode, Insecurity.
Yep, which I liked that episode.
Yeah, it's like that is a very good episode because it's like because for like almost like the first third of it, it's not even an episode of Young Justice. It's Green Arrow and Artemis doing their thing, and that's pretty good.
Fighting DC's answer to Spider-Man as a villain.
Yeah, in fact, it's like I don't know if he might be voiced by. He sounded familiar. I wanna look this up while we're doing this real quick. But he definitely sounded familiar. I might be wrong on who's voicing him, but it's like it is a nice little thing. It's like they even like go through all the things like web. It's like just let me web sling. I'm having fun. And it's just a lot of it's like they managed to take him down and say
with Justice, which earned her extra points.
Yes, it did earn her extra points because she webbed up the webhead.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's like I didn't know this at the time, but the little girl that they save is actually going to be Arrowette in the upcoming season 3.
It's just they're setting up for all this crap. First Beast Boy and now Arrowette.
Yeah, it's like, and Arrowette's not even in next season. She's in, season 3.
The season that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah. So, and of course they take down the bad guy. Roy shows up, being his usual Roy self.
Yep.
Puts Artemis down a bit as she's returning back to Gotham.
It's like they call him the Red Arrow, but he should be the Grump Arrow.
Oh, and then would the Green Arrow be not so Grump Arrow?
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's really funny because Green Arrow proves that Batman is Batman because he's just a freaking child. An awesome adult crime-fighting child, because Green Arrow's been through some very similar things and has all the same kind of privilege that Batman does, except Green Arrow has a sense of humor and, the emotions of a normal human being. And
yeah, that is absolutely true. And it's like Green Arrow turns to Roy and he's like, I need to talk. I need to talk to you. It's like, and then there's a bank robbery that happens, and like one for old time's sake, and it's like this nice little moment that it's like, yeah, these two haven't done anything together in 6 months, and it's this nice little sort of. I mean, other than the time that they actually teamed up for the Injustice League, but let's not talk about that. But they haven't been partners for like 6 months, so it's like, all right, we'll stop this bank robbery together. And of course, Green Arrow comes and says that he made it past the judgment of the Justice League, but he wants him to join the team to like sort of get that teamwork dynamic down, because it's just been the two of them.
Well, and like set a good example for the rest of the team and that kind of jazz, because that was one of the concerns they had, is when they're like, well, when we extended him a membership to the team, he was just like, oh no, screw that, which is, I guess, bad team ethics or so whatever. I don't know.
Okay, so I was right about who voiced the Spider guy. He's voiced by Josh Keaton, who, if you didn't know, voiced Peter Parker in Spectacular Spider-Man, who was also done by Greg Weisman and that entire team. That was their Spider-Man show right before this, so that was a nice little callback that they had Spider-Man voicing the Spider-Man.
Nice.
He also it's like a year later voiced Hal Jordan in the Justice League animated series, which is nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. So, Artemis, makes it back home. She's like having a nice chat with her mom, and her mom lets it slip that Batman and Green Arrow came to her first before asking Artemis to join the team, which Artemis gets a little, uneasy about, because she thought that she was asked for her own merits.
And it's funny because Artemis's mom never says that they weren't asking her to fight for her on, like, asking her to join on her own merits. Like, I get the impression that like they came to her first, like, to ask permission, like, hey, we want to ask your daughter to help us fight or join this team or whatever. We because she's a minor, and all that jazz. So, and then Artemis's mom is a mom and probably wanted her kid to like not grow up to be like her. So
yep, that is absolutely true. She is in fact a minor, and it would have been a little bad if didn't talk about letting her daughter do this stuff beforehand.
It's not that vigilantism isn't a crime, but they're trying to break us less laws than they already are.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, Artemis does her usual Artemis thing. It's like, gets mad, but then's like, immediately she's like, you know what? I'm over it. I'm a part of the team. I'm having a good time. So she makes it back to the cave, only to be greeted by the fact that Roy has rejoined the team. Well, joined the team, I guess.
Yeah. Roy has actually accepted the team.
Yes. And it's like this whole thing is like, immediately right off the gate, he's like, yeah, I don't trust you. Yeah.
Right.
Probably, which if he does in fact know who Artemis is, it makes a little bit of sense, but it makes more sense later.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, considering what we find out later, it makes so much more sense the way Roy's acting.
Yes, absolutely. So they find that they have to do a little recon mission sort of thing, because Sportsmaster has been seen outside of his mask coming out of an airport, as his identity is known. Wasn't known at Star Labs, but it's known outside now. I don't know.
I also feel like the name of the place he landed, the airport he came in on, has some significance. Like it's some sort of like related to a sports arena or something like that.
Probably it's Sportsmaster, of course it has to. But we get it's like they have the team. It's what is who's the team? who is the team? It's definitely. Oh yeah, it's Robin.
I think it's everyone but Megan, Connor, and Zatara.
Yeah, Zatanna. Yeah, yeah. It's that team, because they go off on their own adventure and it's like, and initially it's everybody but those guys and Artemis, but Artemis is like, no, I'm coming too. And then Green Arrow's like, wait, Artemis, are you sure about this? And she's like, I'm positive.
Because he knows exactly what's going on there.
Oh, yeah.
Which, as a side note, after they've left and it's just the three of them bored back at the base, there's a moment where they're like, hey, Tornado, got any stakeouts for us to do? And he's like, no, you'll have to occupy yourselves or entertain yourselves and fly off. And I'm just sitting there talking to Ash. I'm like, I've dealt with teenagers. That is not what a robot who honestly doesn't care about what goes on should be saying to a group of teenagers.
No, it's not. Especially when one of them is a couple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
But
moving on.
But of course, they get a little suspicious of what's up there where Red Tornado lives is, because that's his apartment, and it's like, what does a robot need with an apartment? Actually, it's like bedroom shenanigans.
Yep.
Well, there is some bedroom shenanigans, but not the kind you're thinking of. Whereas now they decide to break into Red Tornado's bedroom.
Nice segue.
Yes, I'm getting better at those. But it's like moving back to the teams. Like, they encounter Sportsmaster. They tell Artemis to stay in the ship, and it's like everybody. She's cloaked in the ship, staying far behind because Sportsmaster, he can see Martian camouflage pretty easily. So he's like, yeah, you gotta stay behind, and be back up. But Artemis like, I ain't having none of that. She drops down and immediately gets confronted by Cheshire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we get a little bit more less vague dialogue between them now that we officially know that they're sisters.
Yep.
Because like before, it's like, I know who you are and all this stuff, and I was like, hello, sister.
I do enjoy that. She talks about, like, you're gonna run out of arrows before I run out of sword, unless you want to use the sharp and pointy ones. But I'm your sister. Do you really want to use the sharp and pointy ones on me? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. That's fair. What does a robot need for an apartment so they can keep their human friend in the closet? Yeah, I mean, well, nice Futurama reference, but it's not far off of what happens.
Yeah, it's actually really not when you stop and think.
But of course, we've got to. It's like, everybody's got their fight. Wally shows up to help. Wally, who's on motorcycle for whatever reason. Aqualad's like following behind Sportsmaster's boat. Roy's after him with a jet ski. And it's like Sportsmaster escapes, but Roy's able to put a tracker on him. He gets the tracker off, obviously, because he's Sportsmaster. And Artemis is able to slip a tracker onto Cheshire's sword, which he finds immediately, but she also puts a fake tracker, well, not a fake tracker, and a distractionary tracker onto a nearby train as it passes.
This whole tracker situation is frustrating because it feels like musical chairs with trackers. Because we're finding out, but there's a real tracker, but there's also a fake tracker, but there's another real tracker, and it's this tracker, and this person put a tracker on this person. It just...
Yes, because also Roy put a tracker on Artemis, because she makes this huge stink about how she came down because she saw Cheshire, which is a lie, and didn't radio because everybody's so used to using Megan's telepathy, which is like a half truth.
Yeah.
And I just remembered Robin's not even in this episode.
Yep.
And it's like, they're like, okay, you're fine. You take the tracker. Go follow whatever. I'll be fine. And then she goes off to chase the regular tracker, which Cheshire found like a minute later, and just kept it because it's a trap. Also, something I forgot to mention: they broke. They broke. What's his face? Not Tio Moro, the other guy.
Ivo. Wasn't Ivo?
Yeah, Doctor Ivo. I should
Yeah.
remember that because Doctor Ivo, just like Robotnik.
Who is a feminist?
Yep.
according to his character description in one book or some crap. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, so yeah, it's like Ivo breaks out and everybody's working together. And it's like a whole bunch of bad guys together, like using the infiltrator cloud, Clarion's magic, Dr. Ivo stuff, and making this strange new tech all working together. Which is
I feel like this is why when they do crap like this is when villains win, when they actually combine talents like that. Like the whole reason the whatever the one thing was when they were using the big sorcerer circle to like separate the kids from the adults and stuff. It really feels like they should have had some more backup other than the 5 sorcerers that were there to do that. Like, I don't know, maybe have some like big burly types to hold off the people that can stop the sorcerers from doing things and that kind of junk.
And the one thing I would say about that is that if they did do that, it would be a little bit more suspicious. If it's just the sorcerers, you think it's just the plot of the sorcerers and not necessarily a plot of the light.
They could have had all the other ones just hiding in the shadows until someone showed up to stop them, and then jump out.
Well, I mean more so that if if Bane and Blockbuster and Mammoth were all waiting there.
Oh,
I think the league would have been a little suspicious about why are all of these people guarding these people.
But that's kind of what I was saying. Like, keep them. Like, yeah. At that point, though, the fight's already going on, and suspicion doesn't matter as much. It's more what I'm saying. They don't have to be like standing out in the open where the sorcerers are. Just like there's a forest surrounding them.
It's not so much that it's like, well, once they're there, the fight's like, the fight's already going. It's more so the aftermath of the fight where it's like, yeah, we won the day, but why were all these other people here? No, it's like, yeah, we won the day, and that's it.
But it also doesn't make much sense that like just 5 sorcerers show up and create a circle to separate the kids from adults. That feels like super suspicious in of itself because there's no end game.
No, there is no end game. especially since to keep it like that, they have to stay there.
Yeah, exactly. Like what is the end game of that crap?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But sort of moving a little sideways here, going back to the cave, where it turns out that Red Tornado has an android body that he's built for himself to actually be his secret identity, and he doesn't have pants. He doesn't have pants.
Yep. But his name is John Smith. I'm like, can you make a more just vanilla name?
Oh, I mean, to be fair, it's like if you remember back to episode 10, actually, Martian Manhunter gave him that name.
Well, still.
Yeah, because he suggested Connor to also be a John. He's like, I'm John Jones. This is John Smith, which at the time makes no sense because what secret identity does Red Tornado have? But Android doesn't have pants, so one of the more useful spells in Zatanna's arsenal, make him pants.
Yeah, Zatanna's like prep is the weirdest thing I've ever seen before because she preps spells like blizzards. She knows how to create blizzards. Shown later. But and awesome attack spells and stuff, but then also she happens to have learned a spell to make a random pile of cloth into pants.
Yeah, it's like I think the explanation in the in the episode where she said that, it's like I think it was just a justification of why she couldn't just right off the bat do the spell, whereas she does some odd things just sort of impromptu. It's like both now and later on and in season 2, and it's just like you didn't prep that.
Yeah.
But of course, Red Tornado finds, and he's like, "Yeah, I just want to have this body because I want to be more human, as you guys already know."
Yep.
And of course, back to the fight. Roy obviously tracks, Artemis down. It's like Roy against Sportsmaster, Artemis against Cheshire. I think Wally comes in. It's like because he's much faster than Aqualad.
Yep.
And
I often wonder when I see Aqualad swimming around like outside of Atlantis when he's actually like swimming. Does he like complain about waterways and like local bodies of water near cities? Like, oh, the water here is so terrible. It's so polluted and crap like that.
It's like I wonder how much time Aquaman has spent surfing the EAC, like Crush. Right. All right, so it's like everybody's managed to subdue the bad guys a little bit. Artemis, makes it to the suspicious room, and she tells all the bad guys to freeze, and Clarion has a very Frozone moment. No, you guys heard her. We'll freeze, and then disappear and crumble away, and it's great.
Yeah, it's just like they're all teleported away and replaced with ice statues. I'm like, that's a very Naruto moment. It's just like
I would say it's like
substitution.
I'd say it's more of a Sub-Zero moment than anything.
That's also true. Yes, both ninjas.
Yep. It's like a molecule to molecule Sub-Zero thing.
Yep.
But and of course, truth comes out that obviously Roy figured out the whole fake tracker thing, spills the beans to Wally, and Wally's not happy.
Right.
I mean, as he justifiably should be, and he, it's one of the best things where he requotes something he said just last week, but with a completely different connotation.
Yeah.
Where he gets the tracker that Artemis used to fool her own team, that's the right souvenir for the mission. And it's just like, ooh, that's painful. It's very painful.
Yeah, I am not a huge fan of the wishy-washiness of Wally in this one, because he should know she's a hothead and they all make bad decisions and stuff. Like, they're all kids too. Yeah. And they all make bad decisions, even Calder, from time to time. And he may have known Roy beforehand and may trust Roy, but if there's anything in the past, what is it, like 4 months at this point, has proven, they can trust each other just as much.
Well, I mean, also to be fair, Wally was solidly defending her the entire episode.
Yeah.
And it's more so that he sees this as a betrayal of their trust to each other more than anything.
It just feels feels really sudden, because you did say he was solidly defending her the whole time. So like him questioning, like, hey, why would you do this, is one thing, but him just suddenly like, oh, I see you're gonna do this. Here, have this tracker this tracker will be the perfect thing, blah, blah, blah. It's just like a 180-degree turn, and that's what weirded me out.
It's more of a, it's like I've been solidly defending you, and then you do the exact thing that Roy has been saying you're going to do from the start.
Yeah. Again, it's
justifiable. It's just he went a little too far.
That's kind of what I was going with. Is like, it's not that he turned that bothered me. It's the sudden violent shift that kind of weirded me out.
Right, but of course, as speaking of sudden violent shifts, let's talk about the next episode.
This is the one I have an issue with.
I mean, of course, this is the one you said you had an issue with. There's three very plot-centric, overarching things of the episode of the season-long arc, and this episode, of course, you're talking about this episode.
It has like, because it has a really good purpose within the whole meta plot of the season, because it's
right.
as we see, it brings a few things together. But at the same time, like, they could have found a better A plot to do that with, as opposed to the Daring Dangers or whatever they're called.
Yeah, they're the Daring Danger siblings or whatever. But so in episode 24 performance, they all go undercover to the Haley Circus, which is the circus that Robin used to belong to in his Flying Grayson days.
Yep.
Because there's a series of robberies throughout Europe that is essentially following the circus, and if the ringleader, I think Jack, goes down for it, it's like he's just going to lose everything, and Robin, being Robin, doesn't want that to happen.
Right.
So it's like we can we don't need to go quite as linear in this episode. It's Robin, Roy, and the three main suspects for the mole. And of course, throughout the episode, you get everybody doing their very absolute worst to prove that they're not the mole, especially Superboy. Always just going right for the shield, no matter what the circumstance. It's like every other opportunity. He's like, or actually no. In this episode, he's got to put it on his chest because he doesn't have sleeves, which is like weird. It's like there's always just enough fabric to completely obscure this.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
You're not a fan of the shield subplot.
It makes sense, but I'm never a fan of the. Okay, I'm not going to say never, but it does feel like it's played out a whole bunch of these superheroes are young, so we have to approach like drug abuse as a potential story plot for the heroes because they're kids, because we basically got to teach them that drugs are bad. What I like about the shield subplot, though, is that the only real downside to Connor using the shields is it makes him angry.
Yeah. But that's brought up more so next episode. But he definitely gets angry in this episode.
Yeah.
And so essentially, it's like I know you don't want to talk about this episode all that much. The bad guy's Parasite, so he's going around stealing all the abilities of different circus performers and using those abilities to steal things to create a black hole in Geneva, which is like an insane sort of weird thing. And you got Clancy Brown chasing after him.
Yeah. And Milton from Office Space as the ringleader of the circus.
Yeah.
Stephen Root.
But and it's like the first thing he does is he steals Robin's abilities, to be acrobatic.
Yep.
And he goes to steal, essentially the same thing from Megan.
But then it's surprised when she's Martian.
Yeah, it's like tastes just like Martian Manhunter. So which gets all her abilities. And then
his and I understand it's supposed to be kind of a telltale of his character design or his personality, but when he starts talking about how these other superheroes taste, it just gives me the GBs. I'm just like, oh,
yeah, and it's like it should be super obvious from the outset that he's the bad guy because he's always touching everybody, and it's just like really weird.
Yeah,
but of course the entire time Roy's just super suspect of everybody the entire time. Superboy gets drained and then keeps throwing shields on to replenish his powers.
Yep. Burns through more shields in this than he does in most other things.
Yeah. I mean, it's like he only used one shield to take down Match.
he used about one shield per episode when he shield stuff. Until this episode, and he goes through like 3 or 4 in one episode.
Yeah, it's like he's abusing that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
Drugs.
because having that sort of power, it's sort of intoxicating. I would assume. I don't know. I can't
Right.
go flying around and shooting laser beams. If I could,
Yeah.
I would do that shit immediately.
But you also don't have somebody you're being compared to all the time that can.
That is also fair. So you know, they managed to stop Parasite, clear the circus, give Clancy Brown the win. Roy realizes the error of his ways and says, "Oh, there is no mole, guys. I'm sorry. I've just been a jerk."
Yeah, and that's the only real major link to the rest of the season, like the whole meta plot and everything else is we know Superboy's using shields, like he burns through like the rest of them basically, because he even makes a comment when he uses the last one that it's his last one, right?
That's next episode.
Okay. Anyway, he uses a crap ton of his shields, and Roy's like, "There's no mole. I trust all you guys now."
That yeah. It was like, meanwhile, Artemis is still lying to the team. Megan is still lying to the team, and you know,
Superboy. It's not that
Superboy.
Superboy is lying to the team. He is omitting the truth.
Yeah, I mean, also technically, Artemis is omitting the truth, but
Yeah.
Megan straight up lied. So you know that, I guess that's a good segue into the next episode. Usual suspects. So that's like after a 2 week stint on the team, Roy's actually no, actually it was a full month stint on the team, because this episode starts on December 30th, and 2 episodes ago was December 5th, I believe.
Yeah. So it's been a while.
It's been like a month of Roy being on the team, and he's ready to join the league. And they have this nice little ceremony where it's you know, Dr. Fate, you know, Adam, Plastic Man, Roy, and Icon. Icon's there too. I forgot for a second. And actually, I think one nice thing is, I think all of the Justice League was lined up in order of their Zeta Beam numbers, I believe, which is why Captain Marvel was at the end and Superman was at the beginning, because he's 01.
Yep.
Which is a weird thing to think of. What happens to Zatanna's number?
I don't know. The number system they
Zatanna's
have
number.
is so arbitrary. It feels, as we'll see in a later episode.
I mean, well, not so much arbitrary. It's sequential.
Well, I know it is, but like, there's some. I'll talk about it when we come to that point that I'm talking about.
Right. So, you know, it's like they all have a thing, but then everybody, all the teams, all waiting inside, watching the news. It's like they're watching the news of something that's happening outside of the building that they're in,
Yeah.
instead of being out there with them, which I don't know, it just sort of sets up the fact that they get an alert that Cheshire has been spotted in a plane, and and they go off to do that with their newly acquired teammate Rocket. And you know, I don't know much about Rocket. I know she's you know, part of the Dakota verse, so it's like the same grouping of comics that was absorbed with Static.
When DC bought another company or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of wondering. I looked up some information on Icon and Rocket and saw that was a thing. I was like, I've never really heard of these characters before, but okay. Animated, DC Animated is really well known for introducing me to characters I'd never heard of before and me really liking them.
Yeah.
I like Rocket, by the way. She's cool.
Yeah, she's a nice addition to the team, because she's just like, y'all look crazy.
Yeah, it's any time in any comic situation where they introduce somebody that is unaccustomed to what's going on around them, and they're just like, "You guys are insane." Defenders does it really well. Captain America does it really well. Like in Civil War, when Ant-Man gets thrown into the fray, he's just like, "Oh, this is a big deal, guys. This is really a big deal."
Yeah, and Spider-Man to an extent as well.
Yep.
because it's like each side had that, which is nice. Anyway, so they managed to track down the plane, which had crashed in the middle of snow. I forget where, some mountainous region, but
There's a
it's
lot
like
of the mountains.
it's like, but Artemis is immediately just like, oh no, did my sister die in this? And then of course Cheshire's just over here, is like, nah, I'm okay.
We good.
And then like a whole bunch of people just start popping up, including the Riddler. It's one of the has the line of the episode where his riddle about I am Bush.
Yeah, and I love it too because he keeps going on. He's like, I'm not a mammal, I'm a plant. I'm not a tree, I'm a shrubbery. I'm not grass, I'm a this. And then he keeps going. He's like, come on, guys, you can't get it.
And then Robin's just like, ambush.
Yeah. It's just the disgust in Robin's voice. I feel like the animated DC, even though the Riddler can be a threat, like everybody in the animated DC is just more annoyed by Riddler's presence than anything else.
Yeah, and it's so it's like he's their master strategist, really.
Master strategist.
And so this is when Zatanna starts a blizzard to I don't know, save on the animation budget.
I figure also it's something like it's going to make combat difficult for them, but since they have the telepathic link, that gives them a slight advantage over their enemy.
And fair. So it's they all start fighting. Superboy, uses his last shield. This is when he uses his last shield, and it's like he just gets very angry, starts pummeling, I think, Mammoth, and then he starts flying around, and Robin points out the fact that Superboy, you're flying, and then he uses the heat vision, breaks off a chunk of the mountain, and it just comes crumbling down towards Artemis and Cheshire. Cheshire saves Artemis, like, okay, fine, I don't want to kill you, you're still my sister. Which is this nice sort of like
that Cheshire's not super bad. She just, it's not like she's pure evil and would kill her siblings or family. She just
she'd kill one member of her family, but that member also happens to be on the same side as her. Okay, because that's something we also forgot to mention 2 episodes ago. Sportsmaster is Artemis's dad. I think it was fairly obvious, but
I think they show it at the end of the last episode when Artemis gets home.
Yeah, it's like
which is something that if you're paying attention isn't super surprising, but
what is that?
It's our washer.
Oh, that's a very long jingle to denote the end of the washer.
Yes, it is.
That's like mine's just like 3 dings in a row. It's like ding 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 ding, and it's yep. But it's like then Megan probably has something related to her being a white Martian happen. I don't know. I don't remember. That's like it's just a lot of confusion going around. They managed to take down everybody, capture most people other than Cheshire, because Cheshire escapes, obviously, because she's Cheshire.
Yeah.
And they have this sort of confrontation with the League, because they recover this suitcase that Cheshire was having, and they have this discussion with the League. Is like, yeah, we've got this. It's like then they take it back to the Watchtower to investigate, and then they all sort of like, okay, so they knew we were coming. There's got to be some sort of information leak somewhere. So there might be a mole. We need to sit down and talk about this. And meanwhile, Luthor does the frequency thing again, because Superman's up in the Watchtower celebrating with the rest of the League, saying, "You need more shields. Come and get them."
Yep.
And
It should be noted he tells him to come to that one island that was
Santa
featured
Prisca.
like in Prisca, which is like the second or third episode of the season.
Episode 4. It's the episode with Bane.
Yes.
So, and it's like, and we get Superboy saying, "There's something I have to do," and then it cuts immediately to him arriving in the super cycle slash sphere, talking to Luther, and then it's like there's this whole group of them, and they just more of them start showing up. It's like it's Luther, it's Queen Bee, it's Sportsmaster, it's everybody, and then and then Megan shows up, and then Artemis shows up as well, and it's just like, oh, but then Artemis has this line. It's like, oh, it's just much easier being the bad guy.
More trust,
Yeah. And then we cut back, and it's Superboy explaining his situation, that he is part Luthor, and everybody's like, Lex Luthor is your dad?
Yep.
And it's like
even Robin is shocked, which is amazing.
Yeah, and it's like that's the whole thing he tells about. Is like, he says that's why I'll never have Superman's full power. It's like, Robin's like, are you sure about that? He's like, well, I've got these shields, and they suppress my human half, but I think it makes me angry. Well, angrier.
Yep. Yeah. I love his angrier.
Yeah.
Like he's fully admitting it.
Well, I mean, but the base angry has to come from his Luthor part.
Does it though? I think it has to come from the fact that he's psychologically like a 16-year-old part.
Who knows? And of course, it cuts back. Superboy's like, I'm not having any of your stuff, and then Luthor's just like Red Sun, and he stops playing, and then back to Miss Martian, and Miss Martian, it's like it flashes back to the same scene, and Miss Martian, no, Artemis goes next.
Yes.
And she's like, well, actually, it's like you're not the only one with bad DNA, and then she has a screen ready of her entire family. It's like, yeah, my mom used to be a supervillain. My dad and my sister still supervillains.
Yep.
I think this is the only time we see Artemis's mom standing and in costume.
Yep. And this is when Robin is like, oh, I knew.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm a detective. Hello. And, which is why it was great that he was even shocked about the discovery of who the father of Superboy was. Because it's not that like it was ever really hinted to at any other point. They didn't drop family connections for Superboy, but it's one of those situations where Batman probably found out already. He probably knew.
To be fair, Robin never had a reason to suspect that Superboy was anything other than a straight clone of Superman.
Well, no, but it could have been something that was found out in whatever research of Cadmus he may have done. That's more of my mentality. I'm pretty sure he did extensive checking into how Cadmus worked and everything else. And it's just one of those things that, like, theoretically he could have come across. But no, it makes sense that he wouldn't know. It's funny to see Robin even kind of sidelined or blinded by it.
Yeah, and of course it's like with Sportsmaster and Artemis and all them, they live in Gotham, so that makes sense that Robin would be able to piece that together. It's like, oh yeah, she's there. It's like Batman and Green Arrow.
They go to the same.
Who she is. They go to the same school. He knew who she was before that point, I think.
Yep. Probably. But I like how Robin was like, I always knew. I just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it never really occurred to him that she could be a problem.
And pretty much for everybody, for both Artemis and Megan, there was somebody who's like, yeah, I already knew that. It's like nobody was expecting Superboy to be half Luthor.
Yep. Which the next reveal is the big one, though.
Yeah, that's like because we go back and then Queen Bee's like telling is like telling that
Telling Megan to stop
just
Artemis because Artemis
stop her. Yeah,
Artemis starts turning on the rest of them and firing at their quote unquote new allies. And then she tells Megan to do something about it. Megan lifts her in the air, and then we flashback.
yeah. We flash back to Megan. It's like Wally has the best line. Anybody? All right, so who's next? And he's like, and then Megan's like, well,
I am. It was like, I swear to God, I was just joking.
I was joking. I swear. And Megan
Yep.
finally reveals her true form as a white Martian. And Superboy already knew. He's known since episode 9.
Yeah. He knew really early. He knew before we probably even knew, or could have like had the idea of it. And it's funny because when she transforms, everyone takes a step back, and I'm just like, oh, that's gotta hurt Megan.
Not everybody. Connor doesn't, and Calder doesn't.
Yeah.
Neither of them flinch.
In the back of my mind, or not in the back of my mind, like my first thought was like, oh, that's got to hurt Megan. Just whoever does. It doesn't matter that those two didn't. It matters that everyone else did. Then the other thing I thought is like, well, she did grow, so like maybe they're just giving her some space.
But it is also a little intimidating to see, Megan turn into Megan.
Yep.
Real Megan. Well,
Yep.
Real Megan. Because we had that whole discussion last week.
Yeah, right.
Don't need to go back into that.
No.
So then, of course, they all turn back to everybody. Now it's this huge battle, and it's like they're able to sideline Queen Bee, which allows them to let Connor stop pretending to be sidelined by Red Sun. It's like, you guys erased all that, didn't you? And
Connor makes a point of
she's
saying, like, yes, also we figured out that you weren't able to implant anything else other than that.
Yeah. But of course, and it's just like, well, I don't know, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Then it's this it's just this huge battle. It's against all the different people. It's like we got Sportsmaster and Cheshire and Blockbuster for whatever reason is there. And it's like, and it's funny because Luther's just like, it's like I blame Desmond, and then they just immediately stare at Blockbuster, and then you remember, oh yeah, that's Desmond.
Yeah.
That is the bad guy from the first 2 episodes.
That might be why he's still there.
Yeah.
It's funny too. There's one line I really enjoy where after they call in for backup and the rest of the team shows up, that because it starts getting chaotic and there's just too many people around to figure everything out. But someone's like, "You're not going anywhere, Luther." I forget who said that. It might even be Superboy that was like, "You're not going anywhere. We're gonna have."
It was Aqualad, because like, "You're not going anywhere, Luther," because he's holding out his water sword. He's like, "Son, if you want to detain me, call my lawyer."
Yeah, speak to my attorney.
Speak to my
And
attorney.
then Mercy steps forward and turns her arm into a gun again, and I'm just like, "Ha!" Because she's his attorney.
And it's just like that's such a Luther way of escaping too.
Yeah.
Speak to my attorney.
Yep.
That's great. And so we get that. It's like all the team working together takes down person after person. They're actually using some of the Apocalypse tech that we didn't bring up was actually used against them.
Yep.
In the ambush. They actually were able to use that. They were able to make the ground quicksand again, trap Sportsmaster, and then it was a nice callback when it was Artemis, Sportsmaster, and Cheshire, and Sportsmaster's like, "Cheshire, help me," and she's like, Sorry, Dad. In this family, it's every girl for herself,
And
which
she's
is
like, peace. And she's got it. She's just
which
got it.
which is the same thing that Cheshire said to Artemis when Cheshire left her as a kid.
Yeah.
And I thought that was that's like, this show is so good at calling back to previous moments, and they will continue to do that in next season. Episode 8 of next season has probably the best example of this, and I don't want to spoil it at all, even though I've already alluded to it. But
we'll see it when
it's like we will see it when it comes through. So they managed to take down all of these different people, and then it's like they're also starting to piece together that the Injustice League was just a ploy, wasn't it? You guys are the real bad guys.
Yep.
That's like they finally realized the Injustice League was a load of shit. So I was like, oh well.
Yep. Totally.
And they're able to, take down everybody. They all celebrate their victory. Rock is just like, man, it's always like this, isn't it?
Yep.
And they all return back to the cave, and we get this nice little end scene of Batman analyzing the sort of combination technology that was in the suitcase, which was worked on in episode 24, which Insecurity. It's the stuff that everybody was working on when they all froze. And it's like, Batman's trying to figure out what it is. He's like, he's stumped by it. And Roy walks in. He's like, you ever going to join the party? And he's like, no, I'm still thinking about it. It's like I'm going to take that as a no. And he puts one on Batman's neck. Roy was the mole the whole time.
Yep.
Now, we talked about this a little bit after last week's episode, because I wanted to figure out what you guys thought, because you didn't say it but I was like, when you were at the point that we were supposed to be at last week, you thought that the mole was Superboy.
When we were first watching those episodes, yes. In a very similar fashion to what we find out is going on in reality. Like, basically, it's almost like our Superboy situation was like a red herring.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a grain of truth, but it's not even enough of what's going on to get the actual truth.
And it's like I figured that's exactly who you would think would be the mole as well. It's like for weeks now, I'm like, Joe is going to think Superboy is the mole. It's not going to be Superboy. But
again, my thought was it was him unintentionally.
Yes, but Ashley was able to pick up that Roy was the mole a little bit earlier than you, right? Isn't that right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Like, if she wants to, scooch in off screen a bit and or on screen if she wants.
She'll be chatting here in the
right. But she was saying last week that there's a nice little Easter egg in agendas that would point you towards realizing that Roy is the mole. But we'll move a little bit onto that as we talk about the final episode of the season, Old Acquaintance. And that's Old Acquaintance spelt like the New Year's song, because this episode takes place on New Year's.
Yep.
So there is, it's like we start off, Batman, it's like everybody's still confused on who could possibly have let this information slip, because it's obviously none of them. Yep. Batman comes in. And he says, we have reason to believe that Roy was in fact the mole. And then they go through the whole thing where it turns out Roy, as we have all come to know him, has been a clone the entire time.
So this is the interesting part that I have with this whole episode. Is that I'm very curious as to why they gave them the actual information on what's going on, as opposed to making up some other story.
Well, the reason of this is, as we find out later, is that when everybody's controlled by the Starotech, they're not they're not like being reprogrammed or anything. They are just puppets.
Yeah. Again, but see that makes even like less sense. Like why would Clarion just be like, here's the actual story? Because Clarion's in control of them all. Like, why wouldn't Clarion have come up with some other fake thing like Roy's actually a spy for this ninja organization or this or this? Instead, they gave them actual information.
I would say the reason is that if they gave any other information, they probably wouldn't have believed it.
It's possible, but that makes it to where if they ever come across Roy later, there's a chance they feel they can trust him.
Yeah, I mean, no, with good reason they can in fact trust him. Also, this episode starts off with pretty much the entire league chasing after Roy and him escaping.
Yep.
Which is pretty good. It's a very good sequence, and the entire time it's like you're not. It's like if given like the little interlude that Batman has here, it's like you don't know for sure if Roy is the good guy or Roy is the bad guy in this situation.
Yep.
But of course, Roy's the good guy in this situation. And it's like, but the entire time, Zatanna is just a little perplexed, and Batman, Zeta's off, and Red Tornado comes up. He tries to put one of the, as we now find as known as Starotech controllers onto Aqualad, and he shuts down.
Yep.
And Zatanna is like able to voice the fact that she's concerned that there's a low-level mystic
force
presence here.
Yeah, mystic energy.
And they're like all confused. It's like, well, what are we gonna do? It's like, how are we gonna figure out what's going on? It's like Red Tornado's got this weird mystic energy on him. It's like, it's not like he has another body laying around. And everybody's like, well, actually, he does. And they go into Red Tornado's apartment, and Rocket has a great line. She's like, so Red Tornado built this other body to party? Well, it's like, well, not quite, but kind of.
Eventually, maybe, but
yeah, maybe.
Not initially.
Right. But it's like Ashley's like, no. What she's saying is that her suspicion was that it's very obvious that Jim Harper looks a little more than just an uncle of Roy Harper.
Yeah, but I think they bring up that Roy and Jim are related though at some point.
Yeah, no, they say that Jim is his uncle, but as we find out later, he is under the influence of the mind control. So he's and that's from day one. It's like they can't use the Genomorph mind control on anything other than another Genomorph.
Yeah. Oh.
So I guess from episode 1, it's kind of obvious that Guardian has been a
Genomorph clone thing.
Xenomorph the entire time. It's been there since episode 1. We just haven't. It's like everybody just ignores it. It's
so
like, oh yeah.
Did Double X? Because Double X, they brought it up at least twice that Double X has been keeping his telepathy a secret. So was it that like, well, no, because then he wouldn't have used it. So never mind. Yeah. I was going into a tangent, but
yeah,
it answered myself.
Yeah, that happens more often than you'd think. So, it's like they all find out. They put Red Tornado into the body of John Smith. Black Canary, Zeta's in. She's like, "What are you guys doing to Red?" And they're like, "It's not what it looks like." Well, it looks like you're downloading his consciousness into a new body. And then Wally's just like, okay, it's exactly what it looks like.
Exactly what it looks like.
And then
it should be noted they do this because they found out what shut him down, or whatever this force is related to like the hardware, not the software.
Yeah. So they're able to. It's like he's able to come to, and even more evidence that it's always the same voice actor doing all of Tio Amoro's voice creations, other than Red Inferno.
Yep.
It's just his voice again. Team, get down.
Yep. Which it's really nice to hear him without the robotic add-on, the hollow metallic reverb or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So
it's like yeah, that's just his voice. It's just Morrow's voice. If he said no more Pinocchios, it'd be like, okay, there we go.
Yep, there it is.
So they have to knock out Black Canary, and Red Tornado sort of fills them in. And meanwhile, half the team goes after to go find Roy. And this is a little thing that's like they leave the crumbs to this, throughout the season, but Aqualad's like, it's like Roy has a whole bunch of caches throughout the country. One of them is here. I bet he's here. So just Aqualad comes into the apartment to go confront Roy, and it's like Roy's like super suspicious. It's like I don't know who to trust. Just tell me something you haven't told anybody else. And through this we find out that Roy is in fact Aqualad's Surface World best friend.
Yeah, and it makes sense because Roy's the oldest, and Calder is also like the oldest of the actual team, and they both have leadership qualities and all sorts of stuff and all that jazz. So it makes sense they would gravitate to get to know each other. And even though Roy, Robin, and Roy, Dick, and Wally are like friends, you always get the impression that Dick and Wally are like better friends than Roy would be to them. And Calder doesn't really have anyone else on the surface other than like the team. But even then, he's the leader, and working in a managerial position is like you can be your friend with your team that are supposed to listen to you, but you can't be like really close to them. So with Roy being outside the team, it would make sense that like they would become closer friends.
But I do think this was true before there was even a team to be there, because it's like, Calder was the person that Roy talked to and teamed up with in episode 10 when it was in Ralasia. And it's just like they've shared their fair share of moments. It's like when I watched it the first time, I didn't quite get it, but upon rewatch, I'm like, they did set the groundwork for this reveal. It's like not nearly as much as they set the groundwork for Wally saying that him and Robin are best buds.
Right.
which we also skipped over in episode 24. It's like I got the I'm getting numbers mixed up. We started on episode 23. It's like in episode 24 is performance, and that was the one. It's like this nice little call that Wally has. It's like, where you guys? It's like going back a bit because we skipped over, and it's the best part of the episode. It's just this conversation between Wally and Dick, and he's like, is on the phone. He's like, it's like, where are you? He's like, we're on a mission from Batman. He's like, I'm making a bologna sandwich just like you did.
Yeah. Wally and Robin's friendship is really nice.
Oh yeah, it is a highlight of an already great show. And so that's like, it's like they talk to Roy and they're able to tell him that he is in fact a clone, which he's like, that makes sense. And then, hey, remember a couple episodes ago when I pulled specific mention to Broken Arrow and said, man, it's like something must have happened between when that cut away and when we came back, right?
Yeah.
I pulled very specific mention to that because I'm like, yeah, something did happen.
Yep. We find out everything. It's basically all at this point, with the exception of the motivation behind all of it, all cards are on the table.
Oh yeah. And it's just like, Vandal Savage just like, at this point he's just got control of the league. He was like, we don't know what he's planning on doing at this point. So they all was like the team that was left at the cave and the team that picked up Roy met back up, and they all compared notes. And then about 45 minutes to midnight on New Year's Eve, they Red Tornado, Red Arrow, and Black Canary Zeta back in, and they're like, "Oh, yep, it's like we were able to get everybody back into control. The kids are awaiting reprogramming," and that's when they realize, and that's when they say, "It's not reprogramming at all. They're just in control. Also, none of you went in control, so we're going to detain you right now."
Yep. So they use like what is possibly some of the most broken superheroes in the DC universe, the Lanterns, to put them under control.
And Vandal Savage has this nice monologue as he's walking by and just expounding everything about their plan, about why they're doing this. It's such a great performance, and it's just like, my you champions of stagnation have now become my agents of change, and it's just like, that's such a great line.
Yes. And it's really funny how he goes on this huge rant about like what he stands for and what he wants. I'm like, he's kind of like Apocalypse, but without destroying everyone to make everything happen.
Right.
And in some weird fashion, like Vandal Savage's goals and methods make so much sense. It's almost like, is he really the bad guy? I mean, he is.
I like this Vandal Savage a lot more than the Vandal Savage of Legends of Tomorrow, because that Vandal Savage is not good.
Yeah,
it's not good. He is the worst part of that season, hands down.
Right.
Well, it's them and then the Hawks, and they were the focus of season 1, which sucks.
Yeah.
I know you guys like just binged The Flash. You guys probably haven't watched Legends of Tomorrow at all. But
not yet, no. But I had already heard kind of that stuff, and what popped up in The Flash of Vandal Savage, I was like, he's not cool at all.
That's like I've said a million times. I know you guys love Snart. And
I do.
He is the shining light of season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow. It's like anytime he's on screen, it's just like, yeah, do your thing, Wentworth Miller. Just do your thing, please. Save this show.
Right. It's really funny too, because to me, he's the best part of The Flash. It's not just that he's the best part of the episodes he's in. Like, he is like one of the best parts of that show.
Yeah. And then you get like an entire show of him bouncing off of all these other characters. Like, he's got this nice back and forth with Mick. Obviously, he's got this nice back and forth with Ray. And he's got a great dynamic with Sarah, and it's just like, it's so good.
Yeah.
And he's such a good part of that. And then, of course, it's spoiled in
Flash.
In Flash that he dies. It's like, oh well, yeah. He kind of kicks the bucket at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It's the best part of season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow, but season 2 is way better. So it's this weird sort of, what do you do?
Yeah, totally.
And but also at the same time, he's like the worst part of season 2. It's like, I'm not a fan of of the way they brought him back into the show and what they did with this character in that. But I'm glad the way they ended that. Yeah. And not to give away too much if you're going to watch that.
But we're not talking about that.
We're not talking. So the team, camouflaged in the bioship, infiltrates the watchtower and slowly just knocks out all the members of the League one by one.
It feels like they should have brought smelling salts too.
Yeah. Also, Also,
it's also found out that around this time, I think,
yeah,
that the fix for the Starotech isn't just a temporary fix for the Starotech. It also, how did they put it?
it's like a vaccine.
Yeah, it inoculates you against it.
Yeah, because they tried to take it's like they tried to take the three red Tornado, Red Arrow, and Black Canary back under the control. And it's like, yeah, they're not.
It's not working, bro. It's not working, bro.
And the Vandal Savage is not happy about that. But of course, that's like they all just sort of take that, and they are able to take down Captain Marvel in probably the best way ever.
Yeah, I loved how she stopped Marvel.
It's like she uses a spell to make Billy say Shazam,
which kind of proves that she is so powerful whenever you break it down. Magic in comic books is usually stupid broken.
Yeah, it's like, and she's like, yeah, that's how you would do that. And I think just doing that, Billy was back to being Billy. We wouldn't know because he didn't say a single word.
Yep. But it's interesting too. I don't remember ever seeing them put one of the Starotech things on Billy.
It's like my theory is that it was on Captain Marvel. It's a different body.
Yeah, no, that's my theory too. But like, I wasn't sure if they had done that. So as long as he doesn't turn back to Captain Marvel, they're good.
Yeah, so I would assume that they were going to wait for the full force of the Justice League to have him change back into Captain Marvel and do that.
Well, even then, by then, technically, ideally everything will be done, and they won't have to worry about the control aspect. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
That is true. That is true. So it's like they're able to take down the team one by one. They use like an airlock to take down a whole bunch of team members by opening the airlocks and then shutting it real fast, and everybody slams against the wall. Wally just runs by.
Yep, pop, pop, pop,
sticks everyone. But of course
it's really funny how like the team idolized the Justice League and thought them to be unbeatable Titans early on, and then like by the end of the first season, they're like basically half the size of the Justice League and taking them out.
But it's brought up that the reason they're able to do this is because they're not the ones in control of their power, and also the person in control of their power is split up, controlling him.
Yeah,
like Joker did in episode 14.
Oh yeah, I got that, but it's really funny to see that. It's a really interesting thing. So I don't know.
Also, man, the Starotech is literally just how you bring a season together. Can I just say it's like it's such a good way to wrap up the season, because it's just like everything that the villains have been working for leads to this at this moment.
Yep.
And it's like, that's great.
It's also a really interesting way, because it's one of the handful of big things I know about DC is Starro itself. It's a really interesting way to introduce the concept of Starro without having Starro actually there to do something.
Right. So then there's the big battle of the episode, which is, it's Rocket, Robin, Superboy, and Miss Martian against Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter. And it's just like this huge sort of like, how are we going to do this? Of course, Rocket's able to take Wonder Woman out immediately because her powers are literally the antithesis of what Wonder Woman can do.
Yeah. And it's funny, didn't she say something about like the more kinetic energy thrown at her barriers, the stronger they become or something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like literally the more Wonder Woman throws at the barrier, the harder it is for Wonder Woman to break out.
Yeah, and there's no way she's going to get out of that on her own, which is great.
No.
And McGann is able to telekinetically imbue the image of fire into Martian Manhunter, and that's able to take him down, and they're able to put Starro on him.
Which I wanted to bring that up real quick is she even brings up a point because Ashley had asked earlier in the chat, is John actually her uncle? And technically, I don't think biologically he might be, but she really does love him like an uncle, because her response to him whenever she's about to inflict that mental image on him is, "I'm sorry, Uncle John." And it's just like, oh, that's really, like, even if they're not biologically related, which I still maintain in theory there could be something. I don't know how Martian, but I know they're two separate species technically, but
It
I
could
don't
be through marriage. It could be through marriage.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's green Martians out there on Mars that don't think white Martians are terrible monsters. I'm sure there's white Martians like McGann who aren't evil, because in previous iterations of Justice League, they've always said the white Martians are just like terribly evil, and that's why the green Martians hate them. But I'm pretty sure it's more complicated than that.
Oh, it's absolutely just because of McGann. McGann's existence makes it more complicated than that.
Yeah. So either A, they are related somehow through marriage, and if humans and Kryptonians can have kids, I'd imagine white Martians and green Martians might be able to as well, and that just sounds terrible, because they're, I don't know, it's weird. But regardless of whether biologically she's related to him, she really does love him like an uncle. So
yes, she does, and that is probably one of the more emotionally impactful parts of this fight. But of course, you can't have Batman and Superman versus Robin and Superboy without Batman and Robin versus Batman and Superboy. Fuck.
You're just so excited.
Yeah, it's a great fight, because it's just like they're fighting each other, and like they both realize they're outmatched, so they realize the best way to handle it is to swap partners. And Robin takes out Superman, and Superboy takes out Batman, because
they fight in a way that the other is not prepared for.
Yeah, like Robin was able to steal some of Batman's kryptonite, which he keeps behind a whelmingly penetrable vault.
Yep.
What a way to unfortunately end that running gag.
Yep.
It is the way to wrap up that. It's like, yeah, it was very whelmingly penetrable.
Yep. But with Robin being trained by Batman, if anybody could figure out how to get through that vault easily, it would be Robin.
Oh yeah. And got cats or cat.
You done?
I don't know. I don't know if they're done, but we're almost done. So let's wrap up. And so Vandal Savage and Clarion, they're having this whole conversation about how they took out all the big guns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and of course on the screen you can see that there is one still under control, which is Wonder Woman, because she's still in Rocket's bubble. They haven't given her the vaccination yet. Yep. So there's just the one control on the thing, and it's a nice touch, because Wonder Woman is still under control.
Yep. But yeah, it's really funny, because there's a part that they talk about when they're at this point, when they're like making their escape, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure it makes sense in the long run when we get to this point later in the series or whatever. But like when they're on the run, they're like, well, we could do this, this, and this. And Vandal Savage is like, no, we need the Justice League alive for part 2 of the plan. And I'm kind of part 2 where how does part 2 work when part 1 is already failing?
Oh, who said part 2 was failing? Part 1 was failing.
Part 2 was failing. I said part 1. Because for all intents, from everything we're aware, part 1 is bring the Justice League under control. Part 1.
So I will let slip that part 2 has to do with those 16 hours that the 6 out of 7 of the Justice League original cartoon members were missing.
Yep.
noticed how it was 6 out of 7 of them. The one that wasn't part of that was Flash, because who was Flash in Justice League? Wally.
Yeah.
It's a nice little nod to that, because
It is.
it's great, and part 2 of the plan will directly involve that, but of course with the Justice League taken down, the day saved, the Watchtower computer wishes Justice League a Happy New Year. And of course, we get the moment we've all been waiting for. Wally picks Artemis up into his arms and kisses her right there with the line.
Not before saying, like, this is like, he says something to the effect of, this has been long overdue, or I should have done this ages ago, or something.
I should have done this a long time ago. Yep. No kidding. Which was my sentiments exactly the first time I saw it, because Jesus, that took an entire season.
And then, of course, Megan and Connor kiss, and everyone's just like, whatever, we know this already. This isn't even the weirdest kiss you've had, okay?
Yeah. Then of course, Zatanna grabs Robin, and it's like, come here.
Which is, to me, the funniest, because he's the one that's been making the moves this whole time. Like, he's the flirt. He's the one that's kind of being aggressive, and she's just like, nope. And if we could see the look on his face, it would be like,
yeah, it's like it's a great character moment for those two as well.
Yep. And then Rocket kisses Calder on the cheek, and I'm like, oh, that's sweet. Like, it's sweet that, like, she's the new team member, and she's like, cool, I'm part of the team. This is really cool. My only complaint is, like, we've only had her for like 2 episodes, and and it's just, I don't know much about her beyond that. I do like that, like, Calder's kind of like, oh, okay.
And Calder is still feeling the Tula break.
Yeah, I'd imagine, but yeah.
But and it's like we cut to before we cut, we get the namesake of this episode. It's Red Tornado. After everybody kisses each other, just coldly saying, "Human customs still elude me."
Yeah, no, I just love it because he's lying there, sans arms and legs, because those were ripped off earlier. And I'd imagine if he was human, like fully human, he would just, a long drawn out sigh would be right before it, and just be like, human customs still elude me.
Yeah. It's
super hard eye roll.
Because like when I watch these episodes, I'm always just like, in the back of my mind, it's like, should I make that the episode title? Should I make that the episode title? And then we get here, I'm like, oh yeah, why would that not be the episode title?
Yep. Then one of my favorite scenes of this episode is the one coming up, though.
So it's like, and of course it's like we cut to like a couple days later. Everybody's still hanging out at the Watchtower, which is a nice sentiment, which means that they are now allowed on the Watchtower.
Yep.
And
they better be, after everything they've been through.
Yeah. So it's a conversation. It's Connor and Megan are just staring out at the world. Superman flies down, and he wants to have a chat with Connor.
Yep.
And it's like, I sort of alluded to this as well, but I'm like, it's not going to be anything like what you guys thought it was going to be, because when you guys thought this moment was going to happen, you're like, oh, well, Megan's just going to be all cheese. He's like, oh, hello, Megan. Oh God, but that's not at all what happens.
Yep.
Because Superman comes down and he tells Superboy that the team did good work, and then he corrected himself and he said, "You did good work."
For me, it's not even that he said you did good work as a correction. It's more like he was like, the team did good work, but I also want to let you know that you did great work as well. Like, it's not just like, I want to compliment the team, but it's not just the team I want to say thank you to.
Yeah, and Superman's also like, so I heard you took a name, and Connor's like, yeah, it's Connor Kent, and then Superman's like, well, my name is Clark Kent, and then the look,
It's just like, oh no.
and it's just like, and Superman's just like, no, it feels right, and it's like, an entire season of all that angst, and it's just like this is such a huge pressure release for the audience and specifically for Connor.
My issue with it though is that like it took Superboy like going like leading being part of a death-defying mission to save the Justice League before Superman was like, okay, maybe I'll give this kid a chance.
It's like I think that the fact that he was able to do this despite having Luthor DNA is probably a huge thing for him.
Maybe. That doesn't make it feel any better to me.
I mean, true, but it's like we'll get a little more in season 2. We'll see the advancement of their relationship, but we close out the season with everybody talking in the Watchtower.
Yep.
They're all sort of depressed because it's like, and it's Roy just sort of like, I'm not Roy Harper. I'm a clone. It's like I'm worse than I'm a fraud. And it's just like, it's so well sets up for where Roy is in season 2, because he's on the search for Speedy. He's doesn't feel worthy of being him, and it's just like, and of course, Cadmus has both Match and the real Roy Harper, who is missing his arm.
Yep. Which is interesting to note.
Yeah.
Which we're shown that after they're like, well, we've contacted Cadmus and Guardian's done everything he can to look for it, but there's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. And the establishing shot we get of Cadmus is Guardian standing amidst a bunch of freaking dead genomes.
Yeah.
As like the rest of what remains of the light is evacuating the lab.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh man, they've got Match, they've got Roy. Who knows what they can do now?
Yep.
But that's not all that we find out. This is when we get the official confirmation that 6 members of the Justice League have been gone for a full 16 hours. And I actually went back and I looked. So we get the time that Batman appeared and told the team that Roy was a clone. And then when they are doing their assault on the Watchtower, it is exactly 16 hours later to the minute.
Yeah.
It's like when Batman tells him it's like 7:16, and then when they're at the Watchtower, it's 23:16, because it's in military time.
Totally, I get it.
Yeah, it's like they're so good at doing stuff like that. But that is where we end this season. So what did you think of the season? Obviously, it obviously.
I feel. Oh, I loved it. The whole show is fantastic so far. We haven't gotten to season 2 yet, but I look forward to season 2 if the storytelling and the writing is as good as season 1.
Oh yeah.
Because in the past, with their animated series, DC animated has always been superior in my eyes. Like everything about season 1 of Young Justice, 26 episodes included. The fact that it's fully 26. I have a few hiccups personally, but in general, I feel it's tighter than anything DC live action has given us. Because not a moment is lost and nothing feels obnoxious. Like it's not the 30th time I'm seeing Savitar this season and I'm just rolling my eyes.
Yeah. It's like that. It's like it is exactly half the amount of time we get in a season of the Flash, but it feels like we get so much more.
Yes. And I feel as though even if the show was an hour long and they had 26 episodes, they'd still do a better job keeping it tighter, because there could be more information. They could have more characters even. And I don't know. It just feels better.
As I mean, this team has always been great at cartoons. I mean, this is the same team that's behind Gargoyles.
Yeah, which is a fantastic show.
It's like I don't think these guys have a show that's not fantastic.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest.
But I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to season 2.
Which I guess we should bring up, because it's like we will be taking a bit of a break, because you've got Fan Friction this week, and then as of now I will be doing Gamer Grudge on Labor Day, so we'll be taking 2 weeks off.
Well, and then I have school starting and possibly work, and we have to figure out scheduling and everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be challenging, but I'm really excited for the next season, not only of Young Justice, but to continue with Just Whelmed.
Yeah,
so.
this has been a lot of fun. So other than what I've already said, what do you got to plug?
Well, today at about 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern, and 4 Pacific, Ashley, my wife, Ms. Davis, and I will be doing a live BFF talking about the first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, as we weren't able to get through the rest of the series because of prepping for work and school and everything. But, I'll talk about some of the other stuff in the later seasons for things that matter to me, because I've seen the whole series before, and
right.
get her input on some of the stuff as well. That's today. Look for it on the Tough channel. I've already tweeted out a link before, so if you guys follow me at Drake Masters, you can find it. And we have Fan Friction coming back next weekend, where I'll be taking on Langley, Neely, and Billy Business of TV Fights. And I'm excited for that. Billy is fantastic. TV Fights is my favorite show on Screen Junkies. So to be able to go head-to-head with Billy is exciting.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, especially with Langley getting to return to Fan Friction after his hiatus from it.
Yep.
But it's like I said before, I'm going to be on Gamer Grudge on Labor Day, which is Mac's gaming fight show, and you were on there for episode 1 along with Tom Bennis, and Tom Zambino was on last week, and hopefully I'm able to take the victory so that I can actually go up against Tom Bennis, and also probably redeem myself after my downward spiral that was my Fan Friction battle.
It's challenging. I've never won a Fan Friction fight.
Really? That's surprising to me.
Of all of my appearances, I've only gotten to the speed round once, and I've never actually won Fan Friction. So
wow. Like I said, I started off strong and then I just went downhill.
That's usually how I go. My only real strength in Fan Friction is the speed round, so I'm hoping to rely on that later.
Yeah, hopefully get it. Man. Also, just side note, you destroyed the tiebreaker in Gamer Grudge.
Oh well, thank you.
I'm like, it's like there was only one that I was able to get it out before. Like I was like sort of playing along, and I was only one that I was able to get out before you, and I think that was Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, but Street Fighter 2 was challenging. I'm like, is it the Hulk? No, it was then it made sense.
Yeah.
Reuse belt in the leg position was what gave it away for me eventually.
That's like, but I saw it immediately. I'm like that's Blanca, and that's obviously Ryu's pants. So I'm like, is that Street Fighter 2? I'm like, because I'm like, Blanca wasn't in Street Fighter 1, right?
No. Well, Street Fighter 1 never had like a wide cartridge release like that, because
right.
Street Fighter was weird. But for me, it was the whole, once I realized who it was, I'm like, okay, which Street Fighter 2 is it?
Oh, yeah, that's also the question.
So I just went with Street Fighter 2. I'm like, maybe they'll count it even if it's Turbo or Championship.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, it's like it's from like a tiny little zoomed in part of the thing. Also, we're doing a lot of talking, not about plugging anything or the show. So I think we should wrap up. This is usually what we do immediately after the show, guys. By the way, just talk. So this has been Just Whelmed, and I hope that you've all enjoyed this season as we all have. And maybe we'll get Tom's thoughts eventually. So see you guys.
You're hoping.